But Amanda did catch a photo of me last night. Obviously, I was in charge of the barbecue. And she came out to see how I was getting on, and I had found myself my favourite deck chair with beer in hand, kind of relaxing whilst the cooking was going on, not doing very much, basically.
But it's very important. You have to be there to oversee.
I was looking, and I had an alarm on as well.
Yeah, that's good. How about you, Megan? What did you get to?
My friend from Australia is over 5 weeks,
Oh, wow.
and she came to Bristol for a few nights,
Mm.
which was
Gee.
lovely. I've not seen her for a couple of years.
Did you say the weather's always like that? When
Well, I'm trying to convince her to move back,
you?
to England, but to the southwest. She lives in Perth, so they do lots of outdoor activities.
Yeah.
Perth's quite special.
So if you come back, because her and her partner are both from England.
Yeah.
So if you come back, the southwest would be great because you've got outdoor activities
That's
as well.
true.
On your doorstep.
But you haven't got Cottesloe Beach and the sun and the sand.
That's true, but it was sunny while she was here, so I didn't only.
Though it does get very hot in Perth. I spent about 3 months working there.
Did you really?
Yeah. And it's an amazing place.
I've
And
learned two things about James today. One, he spent 3 months in Perth, and two, he did a marathon. I've known the guy for years. Anything else you want to tell me?
That's loads of stuff.
Dim and distant part. Actually, no, don't get. Let's not go there.
I've got a list of interesting facts for the podcast, which covers me for the next 5 years.
Yeah, right.
You just slowly
Yeah, I know. Slowly let
release
something
them.
out. Yeah.
Where should we start? Are we ready, Alex? Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Taking Stock After the Bell, episode 65, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't actually checked if that's the case. Joined as always by James Hughes, fresh off a weekend of barbecuing and sailing and putting Factor 50 on. And delighted to be joined by Megan Rimmer. Megan is a financial planner at Court Achievement Financial Planning and was a previous guest on the podcast a while ago. It was about October, and it wasn't 2025, so it must have been 2024.
Yeah.
I think you're the first guest to make a second appearance.
Wow, what
I'm
an
not
honour.
sure we've had a second.
Ben's been on a couple of times.
Has he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He definitely
Take
has.
that fact back.
But congratulations on being,
Thank you. The
returning
next
champ.
best person that's come on more than once. I'll take it.
I don't think
You
I was here when Ben came on a second time.
There's
That's
a
why
record
Oh, no,
broken
you weren't
there.
actually.
That's why I take the excuse.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks for
now-
having me back.
No problem. And you sit down with clients and go through their financial affairs and do some planning and give them some advice and things. We had, as we were talking earlier, we had Vicky Reynal on last time, episode 64, talking about the psychology of money and how people often think that they are bad with money and that they need help. So therefore, you're on the sort of firing line of that, really. So someone who might think they're bad with money finally picks up the phone or drops you an email and says, "Can you come and help me, please?" Where would you start if, say, Husey turned up? So
That would be fun for you, wouldn't it?
That would be fun. I'd say, right, okay. What else don't I know about you? That would be my job. Well, I suppose really, before I answer your question, I'll just recap for listeners of what I actually do. Because my day-to-day job is different from you. And people may not have listened to my first episode. So as a financial planner, I very much look at what a client actually wants to do with their life. What do they want to enjoy their money for? Are they looking at retiring? Do they want to pay for private education for their children? What is the whole point of us even sitting down and talking about their finances? What do they want to achieve? And then I look from a sort of top down, what's the structure of their financial plan? Or is their money sitting in a pension? Is it sitting in ISAs? What's the tax efficiency? Are there opportunities that they're not taking advantage of? And then, of course, within that is the investment strategy. Do they need to be investing? But, of course, the day-to-day investing sits with people like yourselves.
Yeah. So you don't do the investments yourself, do you? You essentially outsource.
Yes, I don't do the day-to-day, but I would talk with the client about what a appropriate underlying strategy could be, whether it's discretionary management, whether it's a model portfolio, whether it's a fund. So when I'm sitting down with clients that have maybe never had an advisor before, it's really to get to the crux of what do they want to do with the money. And a lot of the time, people don't know what they want to do with it. And the behavior really does come into play with those decisions.
Yeah.
And I think getting people to actually focus of, okay, what do you want to achieve is really key. Because I could give the best advice in the world, but if it isn't if it is not going to give you what you want, then it's not really the best advice at all.
Right.
I'll give you a good example. I sat down with a few years ago now some business owners that had sold their business, and they came to me and they said, we want advice. And I said, what do you want to do with the money? And they said, we want to achieve 7% a year return. I said, okay.
Great.
I mean, aside from whether, what we talk about risk and achievability, etc. But aside from that, okay, that's lovely. But why? Why do you want to receive 7% a year return? And they actually didn't know. They said, well, no one's ever asked me that before. I said, well, that's kind of, that's the crux. It's a bit like people that say, I want to lose weight. Well, why do you want to lose weight? Because actually, when times get tough, that why is what keeps you going on track. Coming back to the behavioral aspect, that's what's really key is why.
And where do you start? So James has turned up, his finances are a bit of a shambles. And then other than asking them, obviously you ask them why, and then you get from them. And what are the sort of next steps in that journey?
I think looking at what, James, where the money actually is already. So what cash savings have you got? What existing investments do you have? Do you have a workplace pension scheme? Do you have any other pension schemes? What income have you got coming in? Do you have any protection policies or any mortgages? Basically, a full breakdown of your finances as they currently stand. And most importantly, what are your outgoings? What are you spending? That's a surprising one. Most people don't actually really know what they're spending. And most people actually delay even looking at it because it's a daunting task. So that would be, okay, what do we want to do? Where are you at the moment? What pots of money do you have at the moment? And then we can say, okay, are you on track? Are you not on track? Do we need to make tweaks here and there? Do we need to review underlying investments? Do we need to look at making additional contributions to your pension or whatever it might be to maximize your current position to ultimately get you to the why, which is what's driving the plan?
So I'm quite surprised. So not everyone would have a spreadsheet showing what their outgoings are.
No.
That's quite surprising, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. Maybe not. My initial reaction is I would have thought everyone has that. But
I think most people know roughly what they spend.
Roughly what they spend, but I bet they underestimate it.
Probably underestimate. They don't know where it goes. I don't think I itemize mine, to be fair.
Yeah, I think if you went into the office and you said who's got a nice sort of a proper breakdown of what they spend, not many people would. I mean, you could look at your bank, couldn't you, at standing orders and direct debits, but things like discretionary spending.
Okay, to be fair, I wouldn't know on discretionary spending.
Yeah, so I bet you know the odd coffee here and there.
These drinks are nice.
They're nice. The kids want to spend money. You know, you go to the shops and the kids are going to have this. It all adds up, doesn't it? Those kind of things. But it's not just, for those that are approaching retirement, it's not just what you're spending now, it's what you want to spend.
And presumably that process of going through what's going out gives them a why, and then it makes them think about what they need. And that's 7%. Why do they need 7%? Well, it's not 7%, but they need X amount to cover that discretionary spend.
Yeah, you work backwards.
And do clients sometimes change their spending habits after they've met with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, I would say, well, it can go two ways, can't it, really? So first of all, I normally say to clients to break their expenditure down into 3 categories. Basic spending, which is the minimum you need to live, your bills, your outgoings, insurance, I don't know, the cost of the dog, groceries. Discretionary spending, the cost of golf, or looking at you, John, the cost of golf, or paddle boarding, or James's bikes, going out for dinner. I know mine would be buying books in Waterstones that I don't need. Whatever it is that floats your boat, that makes life fun, the things that make life fun. And then holidays. Holidays I normally have as an annual expense.
Right, you have a separate category to discretionary.
Separate category.
Fine,
so you've got basic, discretionary, and holidays. Okay. And the reason why is basic will probably stay the same unless you move house or you pay off your mortgage or something like that. But discretionary and holidays will change throughout your life. When you're in your 90s, I guarantee you won't be spending as much on holidays and discretionary as you will now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are, good on you, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So it's useful to break them down into 3 categories. And then what it does is that it then gives you a bit of an element of control. You know, when you've had one of those months and your MOT is due, your service is due, then you've got the kids' school trip, then you've got school uniform, and all you feel is you're just shelling out money. And you think, oh my God, I've just spent so much money and I don't know where it's going, and you feel out of control. Actually, by looking at your outgoings, it brings it back in. So some people go, oh, I'm spending less than I thought, actually, when I've really looked at it. And then that gives them peace of mind. Some people, most people are spending a little bit more than they thought, but at least then you know what you're actually spending.
Control. No, we talked about that with Vicky, didn't we? You know, this idea that you're bad with money. You're not bad with money. You just haven't like sat down and gone through it. And as soon as you do, all of a sudden, it's quite a big step. Big step forward.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just taking stock.
Oh, very good.
Do you know what? That wasn't even intentional either, but that was good, wasn't it? Just rolled off the tongue. Sometimes it is literally taking stock of the situation of what you've got, and then you actually feel like, okay, I'm back in control. No, I haven't spent that much, or I have, but it's been an ad hoc month, whatever it might be. And I often find with a lot of our clients, maybe it's because of the general demographic, that they don't spend enough. That I'm sort of saying, come on, you need to spend it more. And Jonathan, and I have spoken before about mistakes that people make. Actually, one of them sometimes is that they could spend more, but they're scared of doing it, and they don't have the confidence to spend more and enjoy the money. I've had lots of. It depends what people value, but conversations with clients where I've gone, come on, they're big travelers for this one big trip to New Zealand. Let's book business class. I say it as if I'm going on the holiday. I'd like to disclose that I do not go on holidays with clients, but let's treat yourself. You know, you can afford to do it, but it's that mentality shift. And that's a really big shift to make between working and retiring.
Yeah, I guess the problem is you really need that money in your 30s, 40s, when you've got, the family's growing up and you've got the big, in reality, the mortgage is going to be the biggest it is. And you've got lots of invites to do things and that sort of thing. By the time you retire, a lot of that stuff has gone away. And I guess because you've made it through that tight spot of, can we afford the bills this month or the school fees next quarter or whenever it is, I think it's quite hard to change your kind of mindset.
Definitely.
It's a shame, really. You can't borrow your future earnings and investments to spend now.
That's kind of what a mortgage is, isn't it? You bring forward your future capital.
Guess you do in a way.
Anyway, I was
for the purchase of the house.
Yeah.
It is, and I think life is very much like without sounding cliche, it's very much like a roller coaster. When you're in your 20s, it's largely discretionary spending, and then you sort of hit your 30s, and maybe you've got a house and a mortgage, and then you have kids, and the kids sort of start growing older, and maybe you've got school fees, and then it might drop again when they decide to leave the nest. And then you'll get to retirement and you might go, oh, we've got all this time. Let's go on holiday and let's enjoy the money and let's do this and let's do that, which is what I like. And then it probably will peter off. I don't know, mid to late 70s, 80s, because there's either lack of a desire.
I don't have many clients in their 80s who like going to Heathrow Airport.
Exactly, because there's a lack of desire or physically unable to, which is of course really sad. And then God forbid it might peak at the end for the likes of long-term care. So it really is peaks and troughs, and I suppose my job is to navigate clients through those peaks and troughs to say, okay, maybe you are spending more now for the reasons that we said about mortgage and children, but let me show you what that looks like in the long term. So something I'm sure you both will have seen and we've spoken about before is the benefit of cash flow planning. So for listeners, this is a very visual tool that we use that essentially takes someone's life and projects it forwards and to show, are they on track? And that's such a powerful way of saying, okay, here's the technical detail that I've put together for you, the technical advice, but what does it actually mean? Again, going back to that why, what does it actually mean for you? And that can help keep them on track for things like you feel like you're spending a lot, but look, it's temporary. So actually, when that stops, I'll give myself as an example. My daughter's about to go to nursery. We're going to have the childcare costs. So you think, God, so much money.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm in my head and saying, okay, fine, that's going to be, I don't know, 2-3 years. Then she'll go to school, in which case that money will then get redirected to the mortgage.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And to think of it that way.
Yeah. Our kids going to school from nursery was like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
It was a good moment. But anyway, just embark on that. So that's fine. And then, sort of moving it on a little bit, like we're just past the year end. It's May, doesn't feel like May, feels like July. What should people be looking at or doing now that the new tax year is upon us? And what are you telling your clients to do? I mean, ISA allowance is the obvious thing.
Everyone says ISA allowance, don't they? Yeah. I mean, the ISA allowance is great, but there's more that you can do.
There's a lot more.
So I would say that May, perfect time for a spring clean. If you spring clean your house, you spring clean your finances. And it would be to look at where is your money? Where is it at the moment? Review, what are you paying into your pension? Both you and your employer. Would your employer pay more if you paid more? Would be a common one. Yes, utilising your ISA allowance, but even things, if you've got money in a cash ISA, what interest are you getting on it?
Have you seen, slightly diverting, you've seen the rumours of Rachel Reeves this morning talking about taxing income?
Yes.
Or interest within ISAs.
Interest on cash in ISAs.
On stocks and shares ISAs.
That used to be the case though.
Yeah.
Right? This is not new. Back in the day, they used to pay 20%.
But the reason is apparently people are using stocks and shares ISAs to hide cash and it's not being invested. So that's what she's trying to go for.
It hasn't mattered until now, but if she's going to cut the cash ISA allowance to £12,000, then there's clearly an obvious arbitrage. So I'm not surprised she's done it. But it's not a new policy, and that's what the policy used to be when ISAs were first introduced.
The problem is, though, that it instills distrust in savings.
Oh, for sure.
We've had the pension changes.
Totally.
Now the ISAs are going to be hit. Most people aren't paying in £20,000 into their ISA every year. So I'd be interested to know what actual tax revenues I have no idea what tax revenues actually get from that, because most people we know that put money into a stocks and shares ISA actually invested.
Well, more than there has been, but there are a number of ISA millionaires in the country, and not a small number either, or a relatively large number. If you've got £1 million in your ISA because you were diligent in doing your PEPs and ISAs ever since, and doing the full allowance and being smart, and let's just say you do get a 7% return on your money in your ISA because Hughesy's been managing it for you, that's probably 2% of that would have been tax in terms of income tax and CGT, roughly 22.5% perhaps, if you've got 2.5% income that you were paying higher rate on. So you're probably getting 20 to 30 grand of tax benefit a year from your £1 million ISA. And there's going to be a chancellor at some point who stands up and decides that's probably not fair anymore. That's only my observation.
But then the money you've put into your ISA is probably post-tax anyway.
It is, yeah, of course. Yeah, no, yeah.
Now we're delving into politics and how you fund these things, but I think we want to incentivize people to save.
Well, the ISA is super popular, so it's going to be a brave chancellor. The thing's actually pretty grave. It'd be a brave chancellor to do it because everyone likes the ISA because it's popular, and the allowance has gone up. The allowance has gone up a lot in the last 10 years.
Well, it's also easy to understand, and I think I was looking earlier at some statistics on retirement saving. And in the Pension Commission report that came out in May, it was the average retirement savings of a British woman sort of approaching retirement, so private savings, was £81,000. And for men, it was £156,000, which the discrepancy alone is a separate conversation. But that's not a lot, is it really?
Nope.
I mean,
was that by £5,000 a year?
Yeah, if you're looking at the retirement living standards.
Yeah, totally.
They sort of say for a moderate lifestyle for a couple, not even a comfortable, moderate, I think it's £46,000 roughly. Don't quote me on the exact figure.
But the place I'm not sure I agree. No, if the Chancellor is trying to do this to encourage long-term investment, I totally agree, because that 81,000 or 150 for men, that would be a much bigger number because most people use cash returns.
Yep.
If it was invested properly in markets.
And auto enrollment hasn't been with us for that long, isn't it? Has it? really? 10 years, 15 years? So you're not really seeing the
it's not been
fruits
that
of
long.
auto-enrollment coming
But
through
then
yet.
even then, the minimum contributions,
Low 3-4% to begin with.
yeah, it's not, what is it now, 8% entirely, which actually if you're earning £35,000 a year is not.
Got to work hard.
It's got to work hard, hasn't it?
But there are massive differences, obviously, across regions and countries globally. Now, I always use the US as an example, but most people in the US, if they've got excess savings, it goes into the US market. Whereas in the UK, we're more cautious. And then if you go to Europe, people are even more cautious. I think that disparance, kind of that difference in wealth, part of that reason is because of lack of investment. I think anything to encourage long-term investment, or just, part of it is not, also frustration is part of it is not changing taxes. There needs to be more education around investing in the stock market is not gambling. It's investing in the world's best businesses. And that sort of view of stock markets, I think people think of stock markets as a bunch of traders on a stock exchange floor shouting at each other.
Is that not what you do every day?
I wish I did, but no, I just shout at John.
Stand there and shout every day. But it's not
I can get
always-
excited.
You can get excited. Yeah, and then what proportion of your clients would be retired versus working still?
Oh, crikey. I would say 70% are retired.
Would you? Okay.
Yeah.
And how are those conversations in general? I mean, most of your clients presumably would have ISAs, pensions, bit of cash, property.
Yeah, I would say largely those three assets that you've just said.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we've introduced the likes of an offshore bond or an onshore bond if it's appropriate, or they've got an investment account. But it is sort of the standard, and obviously the big change, which I think we spoke about last time, because it had just been announced, is the pensions falling inside the inheritance tax from April 2027, and that's really changed the.
Has that changed advice yet, or will it change advice?
For some of the conversations I'm having, it has. I mean, for most people, you'd probably wait until April 2027, unless, God forbid something happened in that time. But for some people, it might be that you change tack now. And I think I said this to you last time, but really it had always been the case of pensions outside the estate for inheritance tax. So let's leave them to the last and deplete everything else first. But now the strategy is, okay, well, actually, this is what the government wants. We're going to use that pension to retire on. So let's start drawing an income sooner than later. And what it also does is it then frees up the other pots, whether it's an ISA, a core account, or another type of savings or investment, to draw upon, or ad hoc lump sums, or whether that's to spend or for gifting, whatever it might be. So it's not, for somebody that's just about to retire, there's things we can do in light of the changes to try and mitigate the inheritance tax position regardless. But it's certainly, like I was saying before, all of the chopping and changing just doesn't instill trust generally.
No, definitely not. And these are long-term decisions that people make, and therefore they want to have some surety that in 20, 30 years the rules will be as they are today, but that's increasingly not the case. So then to come back to that, I mean, pensions come into the IHT net. What sort of strategies are you looking at for clients that have got relatively large funds that they're not drawing on at the moment, and they're slightly older? What are aside from, because a lot of these clients could already be higher rate taxpayers if they've got rental income or whatever it is. So therefore taking money out of your pension, paying 40%, if not going over the 100,000 threshold and paying 62% or 45%, not palatable. Or it might be palatable, but how do those conversations look, and what are the sort of advice ideas?
Well, I think the first thing is informing the clients, look, this is what's happening. This is your situation now, and this is what it could be from April 2027, and that's quite an enlightening conversation, but particularly for those that have most of their assets are in their pension because they've just saved into their pension, which they've done the right thing.
And not spent their pension.
Yeah.
And Hughesy's managed it and it's gone up a lot.
Exactly. You make my life harder, you two. But yeah, and they've essentially just saved it. It's to say to them, look, this is the situation. I can only let them know what their options are. They don't have to act on it. So some say, okay, well, I don't want to spend it yet. I don't want to pay 40% tax. Some people, they've not got any other income. So are saying, okay, let's take a taxable income from the pension that's up to the higher rate tax threshold, i.e. you're only paying basic rate tax. But I have had conversations with people that I say, okay, look, because of the value of your pension, taking £50,270 a year isn't gonna cut it, particularly with performance.
Yeah, performance will match that.
So this is what I say, making my life hard.
Yeah.
So actually, maybe we increase those withdrawals to £100,000, and you're going to pay 40% income tax
on some of it,
but at least we're doing it gradually on some of it. At least we're doing it gradually over a number of tax years, rather than saying, okay, we're going to really limit what comes from the pension, and we're going to deplete the investment account and the ISAs, so that at some point, all that's left is a taxable pension pot. Worth saying, of course, with the pension, 25% is tax free up to a limit, and the rest is taxable. But it gives people clients the flexibility then that are not restricted to only having a taxable pension.
What about this? What about this? We'll sort of commingle with the IHT chat, but what about this sort of gifting out of excess income rule? So if I'm retired and my expenditure a year is 50,000, but my income, and we're going to have to define income here because like return of investment bond withdrawals, for instance, and ISA withdrawals may or may not count. We'll come on to that. You can tell us what the situation is because I don't know. So if I'm earning 75,000, but I'm only spending 50, in theory, I can give away that 25,000 each year, and there be no IHT if I were to die the day after. Is that right?
Correct.
And I think that's fine in principle, but in practice, that's quite difficult. So what sort of record keeping would I need to take to prove, or my executors to prove, because it's not for me to prove it, it's my executors to prove that my expenditure was only 50 grand.
Yeah. Okay. So a few things you said about what would count as income.
Yeah.
So money that you're pulling out of an onshore and offshore bond would not count. That's counted as capital.
Okay.
The natural income that you get from your ISA, that can count.
Right.
Towards it.
Yeah.
Income that comes from your pension, if we set up a regular income from a SIP, for example, can count towards it. Rental income, state pension. It has to be, the gifts that you're giving have to be regular, as in you're making a direct debit or that on an annual basis.
Annual. So regular could be annual.
Yeah, it could be annual. It could be that every year you pay into your kids' ISA, for argument's sake, or junior ISA, and that there's a record that is a regular gift. You have to be very good at keeping records. So there is a form, IHT 403 form.
IHT 403.
Yeah. Which is a way of keeping a record of what your income was for the year and what your outgoings were for the year. So you said earlier about how many people keep an expenditure breakdown. Well, people that are doing this, I hope they do, because you need to show that there is a surplus amount of income, and that's what you've gifted from. The form's also useful for recording any lifetime gifts you've made, so gifts, larger ones that are subject to the 7-year clock.
Yeah.
So this is what I say, there are other things that people can be doing to try and mitigate their inheritance tax position. It's not sort of be all and end all for a lot of people. It's not ideal, the changes having been made, but obviously for those that are much older that can't spend the money, or maybe they don't have it's unlikely that they would have 7 years.
The 7 year.
It's then quite tricky. But there are opportunities, and that is certainly something that people can do. But again, going back to the behavioural side of things, it's whether people want to give the money away. There's something about, well, if I give it, I can't get it back, and it's my money. So it's whether they actually want to, and that's where that cash flow planning is really useful, because I can say to people, look, even if you gave this money away, these are the inheritance tax benefits, but what about the impact on you? You are still going to be okay. Even on cautious assumptions, you will be okay. So they can have the confidence to make these life decisions.
And then on that, they might not just want to gift because they are scared of running out. They might not want to give because they might not want to give the money to the next generation. As in, it'd be a trust problem.
It happens.
So what options? What other options would there be? So I've got. If I had a big pension fund and I wanted to start gifting out of excess income or start reducing my estate for IHT purposes, and I didn't necessarily want to direct gift to my children who might be quite grown up at that point.
You can always place money into a trust. Mm-hmm. So a trust is sort of there for that. People always think you don't pay any inheritance tax, which isn't true. But you could put money into a trust, whether it's a bare trust, which is where it's for directly for those beneficiaries, and you can often put an age limit on it. So maybe if it's for grandkids and you only want them to get it when they're 25, or you can do a discretionary trust. So you can say there's a trustees and I want it to benefit, I don't know, my 3 kids and their descendants, but whether they actually receive it and when, you can say I'd like it to, ideally I'd only want it to be spent on house purchase or whatever it is. You can attach a letter of wishes to the trust for the trustees to take account of, which can provide that element of protection and reassurance. I mean, a query I got the other day, and just quite a common one as well, we're a bit nervous that what if we gave the money to our daughter and actually she got married to somebody that we don't like and we don't trust.
That's the big hang up, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they get divorced. Well, in that case, I'd pull in a family lawyer and I'd say, let's talk about the options with regards to prenups, postnups,
totally,
which adds that element of protection. Whether they go for it or not, but again, they're in an informed position then.
It's quite a difficult conversation, isn't it?
It's quite hard. I mean, and that's why, I love my job, because I'm that trusted person that it's quite a big thing to be able to say to somebody, actually, I don't like my son-in-law, or I don't like my daughter-in-law. I don't trust them. Or even my children, they've got, this rarely happens, but a common one would be something like they've got an alcohol problem or something, a gambling problem, or historically they've had that. That's quite a personal matter to bring up, but it's so important to the plan.
Totally.
So that's why it's really good to get clients to be as honest
and the other
as possible.
And the other wrapper you've mentioned, or structure you've mentioned a few times, is offshore bonds.
Offshore bonds.
So how do they work? Why would one use them?
Yeah, onshore, offshore bonds.
Onshore, offshore.
Okay, so I think of onshore and offshore bonds. I'm going to go through both of them. I think of them, this is a good analogy, as an easy peeler, a satsuma. So they're made up of a number of segments. And essentially, they're what we call a tax wrapper. They're a way of investing or saving, and they've got individual tax benefits. What are those tax benefits? So you put money into the bond, and the bond is split into a number of easy peeler segments. I say easy peelers because that's what Evie, my daughter's been obsessed with recently. And when you take the money within the bond, so for an onshore bond, 20% tax is deemed to have been paid within it when the money's growing. Yeah. With an offshore bond, you benefit from gross roll-up. So you don't pay any capital gains tax or dividend tax on what's received in the bond. So
all the investment return is all investment return.
Correct.
There's no tax leakage.
So offshore bonds are popular for those that are very high earners. Yeah. So maybe in a world where they're high earners, so that gross roll-up is really beneficial. But when they retire, naturally, that it's unlikely that their income position is going to be the same. Yep. When you want to take money out of the bond, so you can take 5% of your original investment tax deferred. Yeah. I stress tax deferred because everybody thinks it's tax free. It's not. You don't pay tax on it immediately, but when you eventually take money out, it comes into consideration for tax. So you can take 5%, and that's chopped off each segment. It's a partial withdrawal. Or you can take full segments. So you can rip some of them off, or you can take all of them as fully surrender, we call surrender the segments. When you do that, any gain that you've made is not liable to capital gains tax. Yeah. It's called a chargeable gain, and it's liable to income tax. So for an onshore bond, and apologies if I'm losing anybody here, but with an onshore bond, if that gain sits within the basic rate tax band, there's no more tax to pay because 20% is deemed to have already been paid within the bond. If it's an offshore bond, it's taxed at whatever your marginal rate of tax is.
Sure.
Which is what I said. Gross roll-up's great for a higher taxpayer, and then they might come to retirement and they've only got their state pension. It gives us an option to get money out of the bond. The other good thing about bonds is that you can assign segments to other people.
Yeah.
And it's taxed on them, not you. So that's quite good if you later want to gift money to your children.
You can pass the tax problem on to them.
Yes. Well, yeah. Which that sounds like it's not a very nice thing to do. No. But if they're in their 20s and they're not earning any money or at university, it might be more tax efficient to do it in their name rather in yours. So bonds, I think of them, whether it's onshore or offshore, I think of them as a separate tax wrapper. So just like you'd have your ISA, you'd have a pension, you'd have cash, you'd have an onshore and offshore bond. And really what it is it's a separate pot. And then we have different levers to pull so that when you want money out to achieve what you want, which is what's driving us, we can say, okay, let's pull this lever and let's pull that lever. And more importantly, what it does is it sets the foundation of the plan. So how I like to structure my clients is that we've got the foundation, a bit like the foundation of your house, and we can add extensions on, like adding an onshore or an offshore bond. But fundamentally, the foundations will stay the same. That if there is legislation changes, it's okay. We just change strategy.
Yeah, sure.
A bit like the pension changes in April next year. Don't panic. We're just going to change strategy now. And what it means is it's not a whole upheaval.
Yeah.
It keeps things straightforward. And the best plan is the one that you can stick to.
Yeah, of course.
Without a doubt. I mean, one of the things I know you wanted to talk about was cash savings, and is there an element of having too much in your cash? Well, I think that the general guidance is 6 to 12 months expenditure. If I spoke to most of my clients, that's not enough.
No.
They want to have more cash.
Would you say that even if people were earning, do you suggest, or does it depend if they're retired or in full employment?
I think for me, no, because I suppose an element, yes, because it's driven by your outgoings, but no, because yes, you might be earning. What if you lost your job? And then you're really, and you're more likely to have higher outgoings. And even in retirement, okay, you might have, what's the word? You might not have as many outgoings, debts and so on.
Yeah.
But it gives people that peace of mind so that if COVID happens again and markets have fallen and we're 20% down, I can say, look, now's really not a good time. We can say now's not really not a good time. Yeah. Can we just hold off on that? Use your cash savings. And then actually, as we know with 2020, things ended up being far better by the end of the year.
Yeah, well, 2020 was a slight anomaly in that people couldn't go on holiday, could they? So
well, that's true.
Most clients' expenditure fell off a cliff. Standing orders were cancelled galore.
But it gives people the flexibility is what cash does, but it also gives people the peace of mind and keeps them on track to withstand the markets, which is that longer term investing. And I think that, yes, 6 to 12 months outgoings is a guide. And I think that's a useful one. But most people would like more. And the way I view it is that if I've explained to you the risks of holding too much cash and the inflation risk, etc., but that keeps you on track and it's not the be all and end all and you understand the risks, then fine, let's keep it on track.
I think it also comes back to the point you made at the very start about how people ought to be aware of their expenditure, because if you know what your basic expenditure is and your discretionary expenditure and your holiday fund, if markets go through COVID or whatever it might be, 2008, God help us, then they at least know if they can flex their expenditure. Because the chances are, if the equity market's down 25% and portfolios are underwater, then that client who's going to New Zealand probably isn't going to turn left. We wouldn't want to turn left. But you can kind of do things on that if you've got some flex. Again, this comes back to the kind of, all of this stuff comes back to the basics of kind of knowing what you need to know, so that when you go through tough times, you do have some levers to pull and some options that you can implement.
Exactly, it is. It's knowing the basics, and I don't think it needs to be overcomplicated. I mean, there are elements of financial planning that we can pull in if it's appropriate, VCTs, EISs, business relief investments, and so on. But if we can keep it simple, let's keep it simple, because it's easy to understand and therefore easy to stick to.
Talking of simple, how about annuities?
Oh, they are much more appealing nowadays.
Well, yeah, because you annuitize your fund. Your fund's going to have 40% locked off it. And there's someone also asked me this. I'm going to ask you about this. So
Okay.
I've got a say it's got £1 million in my pension fund, but I've got relatively minimal other income. So I annuitize the whole £1 million. That gives me what, 70 grand a year, probably 75 grand a year. If I'm 68, whatever.
It sounds about right, but I wouldn't know off the top
No,
of my head. But
fine.
that sounds roughly.
And then what if I'm young enough to do a whole of life insurance policy, and I can use the annuity to buy the whole life insurance policy for £1 million? So I'm replacing £1 million pension with £1 million whole of life, and I'm taking some income on the way.
Yeah,
I've got
but what's the
risk.
whole of life for the?
Well, HT, next generation.
Yeah, you
because
could
the next
do.
generation, if you're currently 70 and your kids are doing okay, they'll be in their 30s. They're probably already higher rate taxpayers, and they're probably going to be higher rate taxpayers for a while. So if I've got £1 million fund and I die after April 2027, if my beneficiaries want that fund, they're going to have to pay, what's the number, 67%?
Well, yeah, they'll pay the inheritance tax.
They'll pay the inheritance tax and income tax if they want it. And they wouldn't take it, but it's just for the sake of argument. So is that a strategy that might work, or have I just cobbled that together in my head?
No, I can.
You've been thinking about that for a while, haven't
Yeah,
you?
you have. I can see the logic that you're going with. Yes, you could. One thing I would note is the whole of life policies, the older you get, they do get a lot
very expensive.
more expensive.
Yes.
You'd have to take account of that. You're placing it into trust, so the premiums have to be they have to be covered by your income. So you'd have to be careful of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think annuities look far more attractive these days. One, the rates are better.
Yep.
But for the purpose of inheritance tax. But of course, there's a few things to consider. One, you annuitize and then you might be paying higher rate tax.
Yeah, you'd be paying some at 40% probably.
And the pension is literally gone. As in, when I say gone, you can often add a guarantee for 5-10 years that if you died within that time, your beneficiaries would still get an income for that. You can add on a spouse's benefit, but God forbid you died after 15 years, the pension's that is gone, so they get 100% of nothing rather than 60% of something.
Yeah.
So it's all it very much depends on the individual circumstances.
It's definitely not a decision to take lightly, is it? But
one of my
sort of observations around all this and clients who've got pension funds and rejigging their plans after April 2027 is a lot does depend on what else you and your partner have got. Because if you've got loads of income and loads of buy-to-let properties, taking money out of your pension, paying 40-45% tax is a bit of a non-starter. Now, maybe if you've got a load of buy-to-lets, maybe you can put them all in your partner's name, which gives you which means you no longer have the income, which then you've got more headroom to take money out of your pension. So those are sorts of conversations. So I think one of the sort of good things for you as an advisor, but also one of the tricky things for clients is that pretty much every client's going to be in a slightly different situation.
Definitely. And I think it really is individual. It's not just what do they have, what's their position, but it's what are they comfortable doing. Someone might say, okay, the rental properties are in my name, and I might go, look, it makes sense to transfer it to your partner. And they're like, yeah, I know, but I had them from before our marriage.
Yeah.
And they're married, so realistically it doesn't really make much of a difference, but it does emotionally make a difference to them. So that's the other the other element. I mean, I take a very realistic approach of some things you should absolutely be doing. I mean, going back to what we were saying of if you've got the money, why would you not be using your ISA allowance every year? Totally. Why would you not be maximizing other allowances, maybe even your pension allowance? We'll come on to considerations of that nowadays. But why would you not be doing those basics? But for other things, such as how much cash should you have or whose name should the property be under, you have to take a human, realistic approach of what are you actually comfortable with? Because again, if you're sat there laying in bed at night in the boiling heat in this time of year, thinking, oh my God, I'm worrying about what we've done, I feel on edge, and you're losing sleep over it, then I haven't done a very good job. Because really I should be giving you peace of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we kind of seem to say most
on the investment
episodes
side,
is on the investment side, we're doing a good job when No, our clients aren't thinking about the investments.
Yes.
They're not worrying about them.
Exactly.
The standing orders coming through every month, which is an agreed level of capital and income return, and we worry about the rest of it behind the scenes. Again, actually, working with financial advisors, having a cash flow plan there is so helpful, because when markets do sell off and you have your meeting, and actually you as the advisor can sit there and say, well, look, yes, it has been ugly. Portfolio's down 10, 15%, whatever it is, but we're still miles ahead of our cash flow plan. That's when I found it really powerful as a kind of investment manager, just to say, we stay where we are. We've made the changes we need to make. We can't help volatility in markets and sell-offs, but we're still invested in a very good way. Whereas I think without that plan, clients are in limbo a bit more uncertain about what that fall means for their future retirement or their future income, whatever
exactly.
it is.
I mean, we can't control what we can't control. I can't control Trump. I can't control Putin. You can't either. We don't know what could be around the corner, another pandemic, God forbid. But I can control how my clients' plans are structured, and we can control that they've got enough cash as a backup to give them peace of mind, and we can control tax efficiency. So I always say to clients, let's control what we can, and let's try and protect you, that when things happen that we can't control, like you said, you can still live the life you want. You're not worrying about it because we're taking that worry from you. And I think it's really beneficial in those meetings to have yourselves to say, okay, look, markets have gone down, but actually you're invested in these companies and they've just produced record-breaking profits.
Yeah.
And clients go, oh, we've actually spoken to the analysts and we've looked at all of the reports and we actually think it's a great company and it's expected to do this. And clients then go, oh, right, okay. It's not just the price. It gives, it instills that confidence.
Totally. And as I often say to clients, if you were buying a house and, the housing market fell by 15, 20%, and it meant you could buy that house 15, 20% cheaper, you wouldn't say, oh gosh, I don't want to buy that house anymore. If you have the opportunity to buy cheaper stocks, it's the same thing. You're buying great assets at a cheaper price. And, or if you buy a house and, markets do fall, or the housing market falls, you don't panic and think, oh gosh, I've got to sell it. This is disaster. You ride it out. Of course, a house is different because you're getting other benefits from it. But when stocks are on sale, that's an opportunity for clients. It means you can move things around within various portfolios. You might look at cash levels. Think that was maybe we had excess cash there. Now it's time to put some of that to work, or you can invest in a different way.
Exactly, and I think that comes with experience. I've got some clients that are like, yeah, Megan, we've seen it before. We're not worried. We're fine, which is great. Some clients that might go, oh, what's this news article?
Yeah.
And then you sort of say, it's okay, fine. And then actually you might have some that have never invested before, even though maybe they should have done, but they've just not got around to it. I'm thinking of a particular client in mind who invested in January 2020, which has been a very bumpy ride since, but now is finally seeing that it does work.
Yeah.
And I think for clients like that, it's about taking a gradual approach of, look, again, I don't want to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Why don't we invest some money? Yes, ideally, it makes sense to invest in day one and not stagger it.
As it goes up.
Yeah, statistically, it makes sense to do that. But again, the best plan is the one that you can stick to. And if you can gradually build the confidence, and you will have seen it with your clients, the clients that have been invested for the longer term tend to understand more that markets go down, but they do recover. Which is something you have to go through, that emotional roller coaster. Plus, of course, people hold on to market falls a lot more than they do when markets go up. It's just how we're wired.
I said look at some portfolios last week, and the last 5-6 years have been generally profitable, but not easy. You mentioned 2020, 2018 was rough. 2020 clearly, 2022 and 3 were not good years, and it was quite a difficult period. It was a very elongated bear market when you had high inflation. So in real terms, portfolios were quite
a really tough period.
Then you've had 2 and a half really strong years since. It almost sort of feels like people sort of forgotten about that now. So
That's
there's
what I mean.
definitely
It's easy to forget.
Yeah, but I think that cash flow modeling stuff and the sort of trying to remind people of, generally over time, line has gone up. So we've had it's a little bit of feast and famine. 7 years good, so not 7 years bad necessarily, but in markets it generally tends to be 3-4 years good, 1 or 2 years not so good. Maybe
I think the hard thing is Vicky said on our last podcast is I think a loss hurts say 3 times as much as a gain, and you remember that loss because it's hurt so much more.
Particularly if that's your first investing experience.
Yeah. And the other thing is,
and you've got online access on your phone. You check it every day. Not good. Yeah. Not good for you.
The other thing is a sell-off. Sell-offs tend to happen very quickly. You can lose percentages, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 10s very quickly. To recover that takes a lot longer. I mean, I think historically it takes 1.5 or 1.4 times longer to recover the loss in markets as it does to fall. So I think, one, that loss hurts so much more than the gain, but 2, to recover that loss takes much longer, which is why investors and market professionals spend a lot of time thinking about the risks. And it's why it's important for the 3 of us to hold clients' hands and go back to history and push on our experience and to make sure clients stay invested and, as you say, stick to the plan, because the worst thing is a plan's constructed for a good reason, but it doesn't quite sit with the client, and then they make the worst decision at the worst possible time, or make a decision at the worst possible time.
Exactly. It's interesting. I often speak to people who have got a workplace pension, which normally just sort of put into a bog standard. Nothing wrong with it. But
Bubbles are wrong.
A standard portfolio. And sometimes I speak to people, I'm like, this is really high risk. It's sort of 80% equities, but we spoke about risk, and you're more comfortable with something more cautious. But psychologically, they don't think of that workplace pension that way because they never chose it in the first place.
No,
they also never check it.
Well, and they never check it.
Check it once a year,
which is what you should do. But there's something psychological about making the decision to work with people like ourselves. You have made that decision. So when markets fall, it hurts even more because you feel like you've put yourself in that position. Whereas if it was something like a workplace pension and you didn't pick, it was just it just happened and it's always been like that. You haven't actively made, you are choosing, but you haven't actively made that decision. So I always find that a really interesting mentality. And it's quite a common one I see.
Maybe they should do workplace ISAs.
Workplace ISAs.
That you can't touch for a period of time until a certain age. That'd be good.
Like a lifetime ISA.
Like a lifetime ISA.
No, but it's not for everyone though, is it? It's not for all ages. No. And it's only certain. Actually, I mean, do you do many lifetime ISAs?
Not really, no.
No.
I think just because of the type of clients that we have.
You've got one, I assume.
Pardon?
Have you got one?
No.
That's what I mean. No, I haven't got one. No.
I
know you and Mrs. R have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not against them, and I think they've got a great place. They've got a place in a financial plan. They just haven't happened to have been appropriate for clients that I've had. I mean, I used to have a Help to Buy ISA, but of course, there's the limit on the value of the property and buying in the Southwest.
Yeah,
exceeded that. But I think it's a good way to encourage people to save, and if you can get bonus money, as I call it, then why not?
Yeah. Any final thoughts or parting items of wisdom you wanted to impart on our viewers and listeners before we wrapped it for the afternoon?
I think my final thoughts would be an encouragement to bite the bullet and look what you're actually spending and spending on the discretionary.
Might do that tonight.
I was just thinking.
You're both going to shy away from me tomorrow.
I need to look at those subscriptions on Apple Pay.
Oh, look at it! I was subscribing to everything. It was outrageous. So that would be my parting: is to look at that, because that is the driver of everything: the investing, the planning, the tax efficiency. Yeah. Also, think about what you want to spend your money on, because that's what's exciting, isn't it? When you work really hard and you save, and then you get to go on the holiday.
I'll tell you what, it's not my Sky subscription that I pay every month, which is eye-watering for some
Is this for
reason.
Sky Sports as well?
I don't even have our Sky Sports, but it's all the it's the Disney and the Netflix and the stuff the kids watch, and then I don't know, there's something else on there.
Have you started watching season 2 of Rivals?
I haven't yet.
I haven't watched
I'm
it.
excited though.
Oh, it's so good.
We're on Yellowstone.
No, right. That's quite tough going, isn't it?
No,
Sensational.
I
Have you not
think
watched it?
Yellowstone's amazing, and I've watched the prior to the I can't remember the years now, but there's 1870.
1885 and 1923.
Yeah, they're very good.
Honestly, binge worthy.
Mm.
Not like get to binge
we're
TV
on
much.
Watson at the moment, which I do like.
Is that BBC?
No, that's a Sky one,
Oh.
but it's season 2's out, so we're binging that.
I think I
That's
get
good.
this talking about subscriptions. The Sky ones, the Sky Atlantic through Now TV.
Ah.
So you've
Yes,
got Now
we've
TV.
got
and
yeah.
you
I
need
know, that's
Paramount for
yeah.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And I sign up to these sort of, like trials to watch
Mm.
a TV show, and you just end up keeping them. So that's a tale for listeners. Make sure you're not getting caught out like I am, because it adds up very
Does.
quickly.
Know your discretionary spending. Is
Yeah,
that basics or
exactly.
discretionary? I don't know. Ben, our tech
That's
analyst.
discretionary.
Ben, our tech analyst, used to cover Sky, and he said he's been through recessions, and Sky's revenues never took a bullet. They were bulletproof.
I
Kept
bet
going
Sky
up.
Sports particularly took a proof
Because
of
if
that.
you just don't go out and you don't go on holidays, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to stay at home and be miserable, at least have Sky to watch.
Yeah. It's things like eating out that is what takes the hit. Like you
Yeah,
said, people
totally.
and
Yeah.
things like renting a movie on Sky Cinema
Mm.
would probably be fine. That's a very good point, actually.
Yep. So there we go.
Spending
Put it in your
habits.
basics. Good. Okay. Thank you. Husey, you want
Thank you
anything
for
else you
having
want to-
me.
Don't think there's anything else.
It's lovely
no.
to speak to you both again.
Your train's
Yeah, it's
running,
fantastic.
or the lines all buckled in the
Let's
heat.
see. I don't know. It was okay before, but
I'm
probably
not sure I'm getting
when I
home
leave
very
this
early
room.
tonight, but there we go.
I'm
That's
hoping
another day.
I'm hoping the aircon is working on a train on the way home,
Mm.
because just before we came in here, I went outside. It's absolutely scorching.
Well, I went outside. I actually thought it was a bit better than it was yesterday, or a bit cooler than it was yesterday.
I'm dreading going outside. I came in at like
It's
7:30, and I'm
Mm.
dreading going back
It
out.
was nice at 7:30.
Yeah, it was fine. It
It wasn't nice
Quite
just
warm.
before I went outside
I went
for
to the
this.
I went to the gym first thing, and I got the 6:25, and the train was freezing. I sat there shivering.
Did you?
Yes. Didn't put a jumper on, did I? Anyway,
But we'll give the tale later.
yeah, good. Right, thank you, Megan. That
Thanks
was
for
very
having me.
interesting. Very enjoyable. Lots to
Maybe
think
I could be the
about.
first guest back for a
For
third
3.
time.
Third
You know,
time.
just
Who
saying.
knows?
Maybe
We'll
there might
pencil
be a
you
call
in.
from listeners.
Pencil you in.
There we are.
James. Thanks everyone for watching and listening today. Any problems, get in touch. My email is jonathan.raymond@quotachieveit.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.